that I needed to make sure that I was protecting myself for my future, because nobody was really going to look out for me.
No.
And so after all that, you've got to do a lot of self-searching. When you fail at the levels that I was failing at, and I had to keep getting up, I realized, okay, I've got to figure something out. Like, I've got to figure out a solution. I didn't have an option. I had to.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing is I started finding some successes, more successes. And I met my business partner. We owned an apartment together, Pete, who we ended up creating the management company together. And the reason we created the management company was, again, talking about failing at epic levels. We bought a bunch of single family properties that were just crappy houses that we shouldn't have purchased, but then nobody else wanted them. And the challenge we had was we didn't know what to do. So we had to create a management company out of self-preservation.
Makes sense.
And so what we ended up doing is we got a business coach from day one. And that business coach for 7 years stayed with us. And we learned about real estate, because we already knew about, look, it's 4 walls and a roof, right? That doesn't mean anything. It's the business running inside the 4 walls and a roof. And we learned how to run everything like a business owner, not as a investor or property manager.
Yep.
And so we looked at everything from a business owner perspective, not a property manager perspective. And so anyway, we scaled very, very fast. Within 7 years, we got to 1,000 properties. We were in 7 cities. We learned how to outsource and leverage. 60% of our company was run out of Mexico through virtual assistants. And we just learned how to run it through systems, policies, procedures, as a business would. And during that time, I met Peter and the company he works for, a great company. And we just, a lot of people looked at us because we weren't the normal property managers, because, the property management company, a lot of people identify themselves as property managers. We identified ourselves as business owners. We just happened to run a property management business. And that was kind of the difference for us, how we scaled. So we ended up scaling this thing. I started speaking around the United States. I started speaking around Australia. I did a couple tours through Australia as a speaker, and the US, teaching people business, real estate, property management. We ended up, as you said, we brought on a business partner, Brad Sugars, who's a very successful business owner. He showed us how to scale it to that next level, and then we sold the business.
So let me unpack that a little bit, because
there's a lot
in there. So the first thing I heard you say was you immersed yourself in education, right?
Absolutely.
You read books, you read audiobooks, you started, kind of saying, okay, now I was a pilot, I was making a great living. Now I have to figure out how to make some money right off the bat. So the first thing you did was get educated, right?
Yes.
And you have no regrets around ever educating yourself in the business, right? I mean,
look, action without intention is just someone who runs out of energy. So yeah, absolutely. And I tell people, like, look, I'm a ready, shoot, aim kind of person, right? So I probably everybody here on this call will probably work 25 hours in a day if they could. But yet, being the hardest worker in the room does not guarantee success. We all know people who work hard their whole lives and they're not successful. So there's no correlation. We believe it's a lie that we believe. So my going back to your point is, if I didn't take the time to educate myself, I would have been someone who ran out of energy. I ran out of desire, and I said, you know what, real estate sucks. I'm out of here. This is BS. I'm gonna go, work with Peter selling burgers, whatever he does nowadays. So that's the thing. So education is the key, but education with action. And so, being an airline pilot, I went through 9/11, I went through foot and mouth disease, SARS, the global recession, oil being $140 a barrel. Now we got the pandemic, right? And so 20 years later, a lot of people ask me, they go, what's the difference between you and 9/11 and you today? And I tell them, I took intentional action. It wasn't just action, because you can take action and go nowhere. But I took intentional action, and taking that action to me was the key.
Makes sense. There was something else you had mentioned to me in one of our many meetings over beers and some nachos, but I think it was because you're a pilot, there is no room for error.
Yes.
And you have built a bulletproof system of checks and like steps. Like when you get into a plane, you go through a series of checks. And for you to scale up your business, you had built that for your crew, for your
anything, here's the thing. And so this is probably good advice for people that are watching. What I've learned, and this is just, look, I didn't know this, I was taught this, right? So I'm not as smart as you guys think I am, but anyways, so what I've learned is that if you cannot remove yourself from whatever you do, if you're flipping, wholesaling, whatever it is, if you can't remove yourself, you don't have a business, you have a job. And if you can't leave for a week, a month, a year, and come back and the business be bigger than when you left it, you have a job. So the key to having this is creating a commercial, profitable enterprise that runs without you. So the only way that you can create this kind of structure is to create something with policies, procedures, checklists, and systemization. And so what we learned was, as we were growing our company, and the way we were able to outsource so much with Mexico with virtual assistants, is we realized, like, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, how does the business keep running without me? It's got to be, whatever you're doing, whether you own rentals or whatever you do, it's got to be bigger than you. And so the checklist and the automation, just like we do in the cockpit, I could get in the plane with any other pilot. There's 12,000 pilots at my company. We could get in the plane together and we know exactly what he's doing and I know what I'm doing. Whether it's just pushing back the airplane or an engine catching on fire, we all know our duties and our jobs. That's how your business needs to run. And so the biggest challenge, whenever I coach or mentor people or help them, the biggest challenge is that people don't understand that their job as owner of the business is not to be the doer. It's to be the one that works on the business and creates these systems to let it run without them.
That's right.
And so a lot of times, you know as well as I do, people put on their superhero cape and they jump in because they think they should be the one that does it. And they're actually the reason the business fails a lot of times because they get in their own way of success.
Absolutely. I recently ran into a good friend of mine, and she runs Airbnbs, and she was telling me that she does the cleaning herself, between the guests. And I'm like, that's nonsense. Like, there's cleaning crews available. You're working in your business. And I sat down with her. I explained to her, listen, you should be working on scaling your business. You should be working on your business, not in the business. But sometimes it's that mindset that you don't have a clear path or systems to follow. So you go by what you think is right. You go by, I'll go and clean out the sheets or the blankets or the floors, and I'll save, $50-$60, but your time is worth more than $50-$60 in 3 hours and the stress and the driving up and down. But you got to say, okay, in that 3 or 4 hours, could I have acquired another rental property, another Airbnb, right? So, and then hire the people. I think what Steve did was, why he was able to scale up is because he took his knowledge of being a pilot, being disciplined, and applying that to the real estate business. But he could have applied that to any business and it would have worked. It would have scaled. The point that I'm making for many of you is, if you're, I always go back to the analogy, which is, are you a real estate investor or are you a landlord? If you want to be a landlord and have a lifestyle business and fix the fridge yourself and fix the washer dryers yourself, and nothing wrong with that. I have nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. But some of us want to build a scalable business. So, figure out which category or bucket you fall in and go do that. But if you're building a scalable business, then you have to learn how to outsource and find partners that you can rely on, and they can rely on you, and build a team, right? It's about building the team as well.
Well, and here's very, very well said, because I use the investor landlord analogy a lot. And what I'll say to that is, if the biggest challenge when we own a rental property, or maybe the Airbnb lady you were talking about, is you feel that you're not accountable to someone. And so my answer, and I just had a conversation with someone yesterday that when I was in LA, we were filming, and I sat down and this guy was asking me business questions. And I said, who are you accountable for? And he's like, well, I don't really answer to anyone. I said, that's the problem. I said, if you had a board of directors and your job was to get a certain amount of revenue or profit margin that was pre-identified, or you were supposed to grow the company at X%, and we had a business meeting, a board of directors meeting every month or every quarter, and you had to report to me your numbers. And you told me, you know what, Steve, I'm busy changing sheets. I don't have time to go find more deals. Then I would say either you need to be fired from your job, or we need to replace you, or you just need to clean sheets. And so the biggest problem we have is when we're the owner, sometimes we don't know what to do. So we're like, well, shit, I don't know what I should do. So I'll just be busy. And you know, what I tell people is look, we all get, the average person lives 4,400 weeks a year. That means if you are 38 years old or older, 38 years old, you have 1,950 Wednesdays left in your life to live. The question is what are you doing with your Wednesdays? We have 168 hours in a week. We don't get 169. We get 86,400 seconds a day to use. You don't get 80, you don't carry those forward the next day. And so my whole point of all this is that you have to ask yourself, what am I doing with my time? And it really, is that number one, what I should be doing? And number two, is that my skill set? You know, because yes, look, we could all do those things. We're not above this. I don't think anyone here is above not wanting to work. The challenge is what are you not doing? So there's an opportunity cost, saying, what am I missing? So like you said, maybe you just missed the deal of a lifetime because you're doing the laundry. And you know, you're saying, oh man, I'm so busy being busy. You're like, but you could have outsourced that for $100 and found a deal for $500,000, but you didn't see it because you were so busy, because you didn't take time to make yourself accountable to say, I need to look at 5 deals a day. I need to make 50 calls a week. And we don't put those accountabilities on ourselves. And I think that's the challenge we all have when we work for ourselves.
Sure. I agree. So at what point were you at what point were you starting to see the number of doors being added, you know, like really starting to scale up? You know, the S curve that we talk about, where it was like, oh my God, all these, the foundation I laid out for the business is now starting to pay off because I'm getting inbound requests. And
and so what we learned is, and this again for everyone here, you know, a business model runs under the same chassis of all models, right? I don't care if you're United Airlines, Ford, Coca-Cola, you know, my company. You have marketing, you have sales, you have operations, you have accounting, and then you have finance. The first and foremost thing that you have to focus on is marketing. If the phone is not ringing and you're not tracking all of your marketing, you're going out of business. You just don't realize it. So to answer your question, what we realized was once we focused on the marketing, when I say focus, we had KPIs and metrics. We had every lead strategy, every acquisition cost, every marketing cost. We knew what was working, and more importantly, we knew what was not working.
Sure.
So we could put more gasoline or money on the dollars that were working. We'd split test everything. Sure. So we knew that we had a constant funnel coming in. You know, me and my business partner, Pete, as Peter knows, you know, we had a very interesting dynamic that, like, you know, I was a visionary and he's the integrator. Yeah. So Pete was really the one who ran the business. I was the front of it, but Pete was the one who made it all work. So, you know, again, you have to have both. Right. If it was just Pete, he would have had 5 doors. No one talked to him, but they would have ran perfect. If it was me, there'd be 10,000 doors and it'd be chaos. Right. So, you know, you got to have that balance. And so what I learned was when we got really good is when we understand our verticals of what our roles were. My lane was sales and marketing. His lane was operations. Yeah. I didn't step on his toes. He didn't step on my toes. We ran our companies. We almost ran 2 separate companies, but we always made sure that the vision of the company always was above and beyond what he and I wanted or desired. Yep. So that staying in our verticals, and for me, you know, you ask Pete and he'll say, oh man, we ran a great operation. If you ask me, I'm going to say, because we got our marketing so dialed in, we were bringing in so much business. My job was to make his job miserable. And that was our deal. If if my sales team were killing it,
Yeah.
we knew his team was going to get it down the road.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so the key to all of that was knowing our verticals and knowing what our strengths were.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. And I think one of the things you touched on earlier was at some point you had to scale up the business, and there was a resource constraint, right? You couldn't just keep hiring people. So you said, okay, think outside the box. You know, most people say, we'll go to Philippines or, you know, whatever, but you chose to go to Mexico.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about why Mexico, and how was it maybe better or different than going to India or Philippines?
Yeah, so well, that's a good question. And so we had done a lot of the standard virtual assistant concepts, right? We Philippines, India, and it worked. But the challenge that we learned, and I lived in Asia for a while, so I understood a lot of the culture. And the culturisms is they're very submissive culture. And so the problem is I shouldn't say problem. The thing with a lot of those cultures is they're very good from A to B, A to B, A to B. So they're very good with rote tasks. So if they need to fill out a management agreement or they need to do something that doesn't require much interpretation,
Yes.
it's no problem.
They can do it.
Not a problem. But when it requires A to G to K back to B, now it takes someone to understand the audibleization. And so the Western civilization, we want to talk to people, right? We want to have conversations. That's not the same in that culture. So the first challenge was the cultural differences. The next challenge was a time frame, right? I don't care what anyone says. It's on the other side of the world. I've lived on the other side of the world. It is different working at freaking 3 a.m, acting like it's the daylight, and it's not, right? It's just how it is. So I had the concept of learning. I'm a big believer in outsource, automate, or systematize. It's one of those three when you want to scale. You don't need to be the hero, right? There's other people that can do a job better than you because that's their vertical.
Sure.
So I kept doing that. My business partner, Pete, what's funny is he didn't really believe in it. He's like, no, everyone should go in the office every day. That's how it is. That's how I grew up. That's how it works. I'm like, there's a way behind this. So we had a friend of ours, Peter knows him as well, a gentleman named Brad. And Brad went to Mexico, and well, not Mexico, but there was a company that did some virtual assistant placements. And he talked to us, and he's like, dude, this works really well. So we're like, okay, we'll give it a shot. So we hired a couple of virtual assistants from Mexico. And one of the first things is they're on the same basic time zone, right? They're vertical. That's number one. Number two, 50% of them have either lived in the US or grew up in the US at some point in their lives. They understand the conversation.
Sure.
So conversational is good.
Yeah. So
we looked at virtual assistants we looked at employees 3 ways. You either have just the technical skills of data entry.
Yep.
Then you have the verbal skills of phoning. Then you have the actual physical where they're here, right? Well, they can't have the physical because they're not here. But we're like, how do we get the two?
Yep. There's
There's got to be a way to combine the two. Well, Mexico offered that. So we started getting them, and the aha moment for us, and even Peter's company, I believe, Citizens, I believe they use virtual assistants as well, right, Peter?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Yeah. So what we learned, the first aha moment is we were interviewing this guy, and I said, so what did you do before this? And he says, oh, I worked for 911. And I said, I didn't know Mexico had 911. And he said, they don't. And I said, well, I don't understand. What'd you do? And he goes, 911 for Texas.
Wow.
I said, I don't understand. What do you mean? He goes, well, when you call 911, it goes to us.
It goes to Mexico.
And I'm like, well, then what do you do? What do you do then? And he goes, well, then we render first aid, and then we dispatch the appropriate authority for that district. And I'm thinking, wow, that is awesome. They're able to audibleize on shit that's going on. And I thought, this is the key.
Why can't we do that?
This is the key. This is what we need, because in real estate, it's very dynamic.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay. So anyway, so what we ended up doing is we ended up basically doubling down. We got 60% of our company, we actually ran out of Mexico. We got so good at doing this that we had actually created our own company in Mexico and started placing them for other people, real estate investors, which we still do, and property management companies, et cetera. But what we realized is we were able to take our revenue per payroll from 59% to 33%. So when you're running a company that's doing several million in revenue, That's pure bottom line.
That's real numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it, you know, as you and I talked earlier, a 5-minute interruption
Yep.
is equal to 23 minutes of lost productivity. Well, look, if you're flipping properties or you're doing anything and you get 10 calls a day, that's 230 minutes. That's half of your day
Gone.
just being reactive. So all you're doing is putting out fires. And then you go, what did you do today? You go, I don't know, man. I was just putting out fires. I have no idea what I did. I was just busy. That's because you're being reactive and you're letting the day run you instead of sending it all to Mexico and letting them handle it. It's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the stuff can be handled down there if they're trained correctly.
Agree. So that allowed you to scale. The cultural differences were negligible because they had already lived in the United States and they knew the procedures, they knew how to dispatch, they knew how to troubleshoot the problem. So that was resolved. The time zone issue, the cost savings from payroll, huge, right? So got it. Okay, then fast forward, you know, several years ago, your company gets acquired by Mind.
Correct.
And what was that like? You know, what did they approach you or you approached them?
A friend of ours, mutual friend with Peter as well, his name was Alex. So he had a marketing company in the Bay Area here, you know. And so he ended up selling, he ended up going over to Mind and working for them. And then he was like, hey man, I want to scale this, but I need you. I need you to be a part of this. Would you be willing, would you guys be willing to come over in an acquisition? And, you know, I was more willing probably than Pete, because Pete was the operator and had built this thing. And it wasn't exactly my baby as it was his, but we were both willing to discuss it. And we liked what they did. They had the funding, they had the ability, they've got a great model. And we were like, you know what? They are light years ahead of where we would want to be. So, you know, one thing that I've learned, and this is for probably people on here, one of the things a lot of people ask me, like, why did you sell? Like, why did you do that? And my answer that I give to people that I would give to people here is, you know, life is a book and it's made of chapters. A chapter begins and a chapter ends. Some are long, some are short, some are good and some are bad, right? And at some point, it's just time to close a chapter. And for me, it was time to close that chapter. And I carried a lot of information and knowledge and experience to the next chapter of my life, what I'm doing now. And so to me, it was time to end that chapter of my life. I loved it. I loved the people that I met, you know, people like Peter and other great Citizen Home Solutions and some great companies and some very good, strong friendships. But it was the chapter of my life. And again, you can't always go back and relive an old chapter. And at some point, you may not want to end it. It may not make sense. But for me, it made sense to end that chapter for me. So that's why it was, you know, we didn't need to sell. We were doing great. The company was growing. I mean, we were on a trajectory, but for me, it was just time.
Yeah, it happens. You know, you went through that, and the right partner. They were the right partner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And okay, so since you were then kind of helping them out, you were with them for some time, and then what you at that juncture in your life, in your professional career, you could have chosen to do anything, right?
Yeah.
You could have.
Well, modeling was out. Modeling was out. So was dancing. That wasn't going to happen. So I was my window was narrowing.
You know, the debt collector.
My hair modeling job evaporated. I don't know why, but that went away. But you could have, you know, done almost anything. But shit, I could have just stayed as an airline pilot. You know what I mean? I mean, I could have just not done anything. I sold a company, did very well. You know, that's just not who I am. You know, everybody has a burning desire, right? Like you, me, other people out there, we don't do it for money. No. I mean, look, money's nice. I love it. Right? You can buy some cool shit with money, but I don't do it for the money. I do it because I love doing what I do. I love helping people. I love teaching people. And to me, I just felt like, you know what, if I could give back and if I can help people be a better version, and like you know, the biggest challenge, I think, and I say this very respectfully for people that are watching, as entrepreneurs, we can be very selfish people. And the reason I say that is we come on these calls, right? We go to seminars, we read books, we do all of this stuff to make ourselves better for our families. but we don't actually share it with the people that we're doing it for. So you have a spouse, you have a child, you're doing all these things, but do you ever actually share it with them? Do they even know what you're doing? All of a sudden it's like, oh, he went to a seminar this weekend. I guess he's wrapping something. He's doing this. It's like, I don't know what the hell he's doing now, but he's hot, you know, and you don't, you know, we feel it's our obligation to help our family, but we don't actually share it with the people we're doing it for.
Sure.
So I'm trying to help people understand that, like, why are you doing this? Like, what is your Disneyland? How do you bring your family involved in this? You know, my son is, you know, he at 14 years old, he bought his first rental property.
So did he come to, how did that conversation go? He came to you, right?
Yeah, he came to me,
and he was how old then?
He was 14. Well, he was 14. And, you know, he had heard me on the radio and podcast shows, and he would always, you know, in the car, he listened to podcast shows, Audible books, and, you know, the kid's like 13 years old. I'm thinking he doesn't pay attention. Like, he's just sitting there, you know? And one day we were driving in the car. I used to take him to the gym with me. And one day we're in the car and he's got his friend with him. And I was listening to like Andy Frisella or Grant Cardone or something. And my son's name is Jet. And his friend says, "Hey, Jet, is that the guy you were telling me about?" And he just like shakes his head, like doesn't say anything. He just kind of shakes his head. And I kind of like, I caught it, but I didn't pay attention to it. I was like, oh, like maybe he listens to it. Like maybe he likes it or something. Didn't say anything. And then about 3 months later, he's like, "Dad, I want to buy a rental property." And I'm like, "You want to buy a rental property?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "For what? Like, what do you want to rent?" He's like, I want to have the passive income. I want the cash flow." I'm like, "What do you know about cash flow?" And he's like, "Well, I've heard you speaking. I see what you and Mom have. And I'm like, look, and I'm the first one to tell people, I didn't intentionally, it's not like I groomed him to do this. He just evolved from listening. So, you know, when you're talking to a 14-year-old about real estate, you've got to explain a mortgage payment, taxes, a deed. So I basically had to explain to him all about real estate, what appreciation is. Like, just, he thought, oh, we can buy a house for $1,500. I'm making $1,500 a month. I'm golden. You know, like, it doesn't work that way. So a lot of people ask me, they're like, well, how did he do this, right? How did he get a loan? How this, how this? And I told him, you're asking the wrong question. What you should be asking is why. Why did a 14-year-old come back and say, "Dad, I want passive income"? And I had him on it. He was on a podcast show with me. They wanted to interview us. And they asked him, they said, what did you learn the most out of this? So we bought a property. We went 50-50 on the deal. And, you know, I got to say, as a parent, watching your son sign closing docs at 14 with him understanding everything, it's a cool moment, right? I'll admit. And a lot of people ask me, they'll go like, "Oh, did you have him paint it? Did you have him this and work on it?" And again, I'm not saying this to demean anyone else, but I don't want my son to do that. I don't do that. I'm like, why don't you teach him to learn P&L statements, accounting, financials? I don't want him to be an employee. I'm showing him, like, I don't do that. So that would be hypocritical for me to say, "Hey, go build that wall." I couldn't even fucking build a wall. So I'm going to show him to, like, I would be worse. So why should I make him do it? Like, what's the skill set? And I understand when people want to do that. And look, I wish I had that skill set. I don't have that. I don't possess that. I don't want him to have that. I want him to think from here up. I want him to be a business owner. And so my thing is, you know, that's the thing. Like, why don't we teach our children that? Let's get our kids, our family members, our spouses, everyone to understand, what are we doing and why are we doing it? So that's kind of, going back to your question, like, that's kind of the second half of my life, if you will, what I'm doing.
Got it. And so I know you're heavily involved in education now.
Yes.
You've invested a lot of your own personal capital and time to build out an amazing platform. And I just want to officially announce that Steve is going to be a part of Better Capital. You know, as many of you know, I've talked about Better Capital many times. So we believe in the 3 T's, you know, the tracking, the training, and then the transactions, right? So those are the 3 key pillars that Better Capital is built on. And with the synergy that Steve has with around education and training and mindset and tactical, how do you buy a property? How do you own a property? How do you manage a property? How do you scale up your rentals and so on and so forth? We're going to bring all that. and just crystallize it. It's going to be offered on Steve's platform, steverozenberg.com, and a couple of other sites, but it's also going to be part of Better Capital. So you'll see the integration coming very soon. But Steve's, agreed to be an advisor to Better Capital, and we're thrilled. But we'd love to have you guys give us some feedback on the platform as well. But since then, you have, he's built out just an amazing platform. It's nothing like what you've seen. It's not the Wild West of YouTube.
No.
Or it's really.
It's not the iPhone in the basement.
No, right.
Me and Peter filming us drinking beers or something.
Right. It's none of that. But it's really professionally done. It's high quality. It's to the point. It's about the right mindset. And then of course it's about tactics. Where do you go and acquire? How do you build your buyers list? If you're a wholesaler, Steve's got a training on becoming a wholesaler. If you want to be a sub 2, Steve's got training on sub 2. If you want to be a seller finance, creative finance, syndication, private money, and all of those topics are part of the education. Now, some of you may already be quite advanced, but maybe you're curious about, maybe you're really good at running Airbnbs, but now maybe you want to explore doing something else. Well, that's where you can just tap into the training and just kind of pick up those modules and learn from that.
Well, and I think a lot of it, like to me, and I'd be curious what people think. The biggest challenge out there is what I've learned. And look, I've come up through the ranks like probably everyone else here. I've been punched in the face many times. And everybody, it seems like everyone out there teaches how you do something, how you do a tactic, how you flip, wholesale, whatever it is. But nobody ever takes the time to ask why.
Yeah.
Why does this deal strategy make sense for you specifically? And more importantly, how do you know what your deal is right for you? So that's, to me, you can learn how to do things all day long, but if it's not the right thing for you and for your future, what's the point of doing it? You drive down the street, you see a house on the left, you see a house on the right. Which one is right for you? They're both right for someone.
Sure.
One is going to be right for you, one is going to be wrong, depending on your goals, your strategy, and your tactic.
Sure.
So, so I'm curious, one of the things that Bobby and I were talking about is we were talking about, I said, what if we came up with something with Better Capital that was a coach on demand? So okay, asking this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So it was a coach on demand concept where let's just say you said, hey, you know what? I just want a block of time with someone for like an hour, maybe 2 hours, so that I can call them whenever I want and bend their ear for 15 minutes and go, hey, I've got this subject to deal. This is where I'm at. Is this something I should do or not? I don't need a lifetime coaching. I just need 15 minutes of your time. What should I do? Is that something that you guys think there would be value in, whether it's, wholesaling, flipping, whatever it is, but where you buy just like a block of time, and then you can only use like 15, 30 minutes at a time just to get the answer you need without everything else that you get out of it. I think it would be.
Yeah. So folks, the question is, if you had at your fingertips access to an expert, maybe in the real estate legal field, maybe in the finance, maybe in sub 2, maybe in wholesale, maybe in syndication, is that something that would be of interest to you? So please unmute yourself and let us know your thoughts. Let us and ask any questions. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yes.
I think that's a very interesting concept. So how would that work? Like, would you pay like a subscription fee, or how would that work?
We have no idea because we just thought of it today. But, to be completely honest, but it'd be something. It would be part in the encapsulation of a program, I'm guessing. My opinion is I wouldn't want to give anybody advice unless I knew they had the right foundational baseline. So. I wouldn't want to give someone advice if I don't know what they're doing, right? You don't want to give someone a gun if they're not trained with it. Yeah. I don't want to give someone real estate investing advice if they have no idea what they're doing. So you'd want to make sure there's some baseline of training, which would be something. But to answer your question, Nancy, I don't know the complete answer. I don't know.
No. So that Nancy,
well, I would like to say this. I'd like to brainstorm with you guys if you're interested. My background is finance.
Love it.
And I love stuff like that. So
awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Nancy,
if you're open to that, I am too.
Nancy, I have your contact information. I'm going to call you. Okay, so I'll look for an invite, and we will brainstorm it all together. But yes, finance is a big part of it, and so I think thank you so much for volunteering. I think Bruce, you had a comment, right, Bruce?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you could break. I mean, if there's different modules, like you really want to understand more about your approach to marketing, or I really want to learn more about how you scale property management or something like that. I think there's just some very clear different modules where it'd be great to have access to someone who's been there and could just give you some honest advice.
I think a lot of us have access to knowledgeable people. The question is, are they vetted? Are they truly, sort of certified in that specific area? Like, for example, if it's a question around, for a general contractor who is familiar with the procedures in, let's say, Indianapolis, right? Hey, I'm about to do this. Can you look at the pictures that I got from the inspection report and tell me, what are the key things? I'll send you my inspection report, but is this really serious stuff? Is the mold that's on this wall or this window, is that something I should really be concerned about? Is that a deal breaker or not? So very often I find a lot of my members, they call me up and they go, listen, I bought this property. I thought the rehab was going to be, X amount of dollars, but it turned into Y amount of dollars, and it took, 3 times as long. And I didn't know about the point of sale in Cleveland, for example. I've had many people buy in parts of Cleveland. In California, we don't know what a point of sale is. Well, in Cleveland area, that's a very big deal. It's an important thing. So what if we had a network of experts available to you, and you could just dial into them or Zoom into them, and for a very nominal amount of money, get advice from them. And then on some legal stuff, for example, if you're about to form a syndication, you really need technical advice on something like that. You need the proper legal advice on something like that. So, but that's something that we're going to build into Better Capital. I think, again, so Steve, my co-founder, Ram, and we spent the whole day together with a couple of other folks, just kind of brainstorming. But ultimately, we're building it for you, and we'd love to get your feedback. Give it a try, go to Better Capital and say, these are things that I liked, and then these are the things that I didn't like, or these are the features I wish you had. And we will go ahead and incorporate those into the platform. But the idea is that we want to build this. We've got the basic platform ready to go, and then we're going to incorporate the training that there are some training companies out there that charge a lot of money, and to me, they some of them are very good, and some of them are the kinds that make you put $25,000, $50,000 on your credit card with the promise that you'll make that money up. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But sometimes these students end up with $50,000 on their credit cards. To me, that's just I couldn't digest that. I couldn't live with that. So Steve, we came up with a much more palatable training program. Whether it's your first home that you're going to buy, do you qualify? What's your, are you a veteran? Could you get a VA loan? Call Steve and say, listen, I'm a VA. I can qualify for the VA loan, but where should I buy? How should I buy it? Or can I buy a fourplex on an FHA loan and live in one? And, can I get the 3.5% down on that fourplex and make it work? Well, Steve runs the numbers all day long. So you can get in a meeting with him, run the scenarios by him. He'll point out maybe you missed something, or could you have considered, another way of getting that property, or anything like that. Basically, an expert on demand that you can call and who would reach out to you. So anyway, I know we had, hey Denise, all right. I know, I think there was somebody else that had unmuted themselves. So please go ahead and
And while we're waiting, go ahead.
Hey, Kenneth.
Go ahead, Ken.
Hey, Kenneth.
Hey guys, how you doing? Hey Bubs, it's good to finally catch up with you guys. It's been some years, huh?
It's been a while.
yeah,
It's been a while.
Yeah, so in lieu of this, I've actually been involved with different real estate or funding collaborations. And since I know who you guys are you guys looking for any joint ventures or partners for funding or for, I've come across several deals, and I think the on-demand model that you're proposing makes more sense because no one needs gurus. You need to get things done, not the gurus.
Yeah.
Right, so that's
It's
the
anti-guru.
And I think that, and I'll just say that, I mean, I've probably invested, and I use the word invested, probably $750,000 in coaching over the last 20 years, right? Now, some people may go, man, there's a gentleman, he's still a very good friend of mine, Marshall Silver. I spent $50,000 to spend 3 days with him. Some people say you're crazy. Well, maybe, but I also was able to build a business and sell it for 7 figures. Am I crazy? I don't know. It's all perspective. So I think that it's one of those things that what is it they say? The teacher appears when the student is ready. So I think all these people, look, there's some very crooked people. I get that. Some people know what they're doing, but maybe the student isn't ready. Maybe they're not good at it. I think that the challenge is a lot of people, when they want to learn, they just hope and pray. They want to dump their money and just hope that person can do it. And they do it by abdication, meaning they just kind of go, here's my money, fix me.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. And that's not their job.
Yeah.
Their job is to pull it out of you. Now, some are good at it, some are shitty at it. I get that. And that's a matter of the student vetting the person to make sure. I think they're all good. And look, you can ask 10 people, what should I do with my life? And you will get 20 different answers. And they're all right and they're all wrong at the same time.
Yeah.
Because until you know what you want, like when I coach people, and I coach a lot of people, and they'll say like, I'll ask them, what do you want? And the first thing they tell me is they'll go on a tirade for about 5 minutes of telling me all the things that they don't want in life. I don't want a job. I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want this. I don't want that. And I'll sit there and I'll listen to them. And when they're done, and look, I'll tell you right now, my job is not to be your friend. My job is to make you successful. I'm not here to be nice. I'm here to make you successful, whatever that defines that for you. And so once they're done, I'll tell them, my question was not what you don't want. My question is, what do you want? And they'll think about it. And most of the time they're like, you know what? I don't know. I never thought about it. I'm so busy running away from what I don't want. I really don't know what I want. I'm like, well, before you do anything, we need to define what you want in life. What is your Disneyland?
Yeah.
And then everybody wants to buy a deal. Bobby, show me how to deal. Flip, subject to, wrap, all these things. Those are all freeways. So that's like saying, I'm going to get on the freeway and I'm just going to drive. And I'm going to go, where are you going? Yeah. And if you can't tell me where you're going, then I'm going to go, this is useless. So my thing is before you even get in the car, you need to figure out where you're going, what you're doing. And that, to me, that's what a good coach does, is they'll sit there and go, or whatever, I didn't say coach, whatever you want to call them. You've got to be able to go like, okay, what are you doing? So my thing is like, I'm like, look, before you do anything, we have to lay the foundation. We got to create the funnel to know what is right for you. Because what's right for you is different from him, different than everybody, different than me. What's right for you? And then the last piece of the whole puzzle is the actual property. And that's what a lot of, as entrepreneurs, we want to hurry up and do.
Yeah.
That's not always the best strategy, in my opinion, from what I've learned. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Look, I've got one way of doing it. I'm not a guru. I haven't been doing this my whole life. I can just teach you what I have learned in my years of success.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think people's also, you have to recognize that your goals can change over time. You hit a certain goal.
They should change over time.
Then you have a new goal and you keep working, you keep improving yourself. Like they say very often in sports, you improve 1% per day. Every day, you make yourself 1% better. And if you have a sounding board, somebody that you trust, somebody who understands, what motivates you, who understand, what are your limitations. Maybe your limitations are capital. Maybe your limitations are time. Maybe it's, your geographical location, whatever that is. The person who understands you can, and sometimes you can't have those conversations with a family member, right? Like, in my family, we never talked about being an entrepreneur or nothing. Like, if you brought up the topic of, starting a business, they look, no, you got to go to college, before you can ever think about, I always wanted to start my own business, but it was,
one thing I'll say though, like when all those things you mentioned, the money, the time, those are all mindset things. That's not reality. It's reality because you believe it, but that's not the reality of being a limiting factor. You are making it a reality because you're limiting your mindset. And that's the biggest challenge we have is our mindset. And the problem is the people that you're with that got you to wherever you are in your life, the way you think is not going to get you to the next level. Everybody has a buoyancy. And that buoyancy is the people you're around. So if you look around and you go, I make about $2,000 plus or minus the people I'm around. I think the same. And that's the reality. So the big, like I've got a mastermind. The people in the mastermind are to get you to the next level because that's what it takes. You have to change the people you're around. Otherwise, look, you're never the same. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. Fatter, skinnier, richer, poorer. You never stay the same. And so a lot of people don't understand. They think like, oh, I'm just going to stay the same. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to stay here. What you don't realize is you're making a decision and it's not the growth decision. It's actually a contracting decision.
Absolutely. Great. I know some other folks had some comments. Please unmute yourself and speak away. I think.
Hi, Bobby.
Hey, hi.
Oh, go ahead.
No. Yeah, hey, Josh, go ahead, please. Wait a minute. I think you're on mute.
Okay. Am I off mute now?
That's better.
All right. Anyways, great to see you. Number one, it's been way too long. We got to go eat some pho pretty soon.
Saigon pho, yes.
Yeah. But something that I think would be a value as well is, I love the idea of kind of having an a la carte, ability to consult folks and get help when you need it. But also, I think there's a real marketplace and a need for folks to, act as matchmakers for those with the skills. So, folks with that know a certain housing market or know how to do real estate, and someone who knows how to do finance or whatever it might be, and kind of help folks kind of find strong business partners. And of course, there's some caveat emptor with that because but you can only vouch as far as your experience with someone, but that's really, I think, a real area for where folks could find
almost like a co-op.
Like
co-op, and find growth pathways and learn how to get deals or do try out things.
Like Josh, the only challenge I would see with that, or the only concern I would have is what is the person giving good advice or bad advice, right? Someone doesn't know, they joined today and they're like, hey, talk to Josh, he's an expert. And Josh has done one deal and you're like, I thought he was an expert. It said expert next to his name. That means, so my only concern would be alive. And look, I'm not saying that I would.
Yeah, no, that's why I said caveat emptor. I mean, definitely you got to do your homework and do your background. But
that makes sense.
Just to make those
guys, I was just going to say that recently, hey, Bobby, hey, everyone. I was on LinkedIn, just somebody messaged me out of the blue and said, hey, just breathe. I noticed based on your experience, you would be a great fit for a consulting gig for our clients. And these guys are looking for specifically fix and flip, private lending, Austin market. And these are all things that I have on my LinkedIn profile because I've done flips there. I've done 170 private loans now. And so, these are things that I have on my experience. And they reached out and said, hey, we would love to pay you an hourly rate, whatever you decide, go through this process so we can vet you and then add you as a vetted partner on our website. And then you can be referred out and take projects as you want them and get paid your hourly rate through us. So I think that these marketplaces might already exist. I had no idea it existed until they reached out and wanted me to be on it. But clearly they do exist and people are paying good money to get access to experts through these quote unquote vetted platforms for specific things that they want. And when I took the project, it asked me, okay, well, do you know what's your level in this, this, and this? You know, high, medium, low, no experience, amazing experience, da 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 da. And they go through that process to vet you before they allow you to take that project on. So they definitely do have something of that nature built in. And I'm not saying it's amazing or it's the best or the worst. I'm just saying that these platforms do exist. And this one was specifically called Coleman Research. So I know I've definitely heard of them in the past. So it's definitely a good platform to start with, but these things do exist.
Got it. Thank you, Jaspreet. Hey, John.
Yeah, hey, Bobby. It's
Hey,
been
good. I know. It's been a while. How are you?
Yeah, good. So it looks like, yeah, you're getting some momentum and a little more context around how you want consulting to work. But I want to reiterate that I think a piece of this consulting is matching opportunities to people's financial goals, their own lifestyles, very much like if you go to, you know, Ameriprise or you go to a CFP that is really more focused on mutual funds and stocks and bonds, that I think also adding this perspective of real estate actually having a link to personal goals, much like you would in these more traditional financial planning areas, I think is helpful too. So it isn't just about chasing a good deal because it's a good deal, right? It's a good deal for this particular circumstance at this point in your life.
Yep.
So
I think some
you
level
want to
of,
build that.
yeah, some level of advisory coming from a neutral, unbiased, trusted source. You know, one of the things we are wanting to build in this platform is an unbiased, guidance, where they don't have an agenda to sell you. You know, they provide education and then they sell you a syndication or something like that. We want to keep it very neutral, very authentic, very genuine, and very unbiased. So those are the kinds of things, those are the parameters that we're looking to build this out in. But look, guys, you know, everybody, you know, gals in this room, please reach out to me, give me your feedback. If you're a little shy today, you know, shoot me an email or call me, and I want to hear from you. But would love to get some feedback. With that, and to respect our friend Peter, you know,
Peter who?
you know,
Right.
Peter who?
Hey, I think Fong, I know you've been waiting for a while to speak up, so please ask away.
All right, thanks. Hey, is this more of a property management or advisory board?
Could be.
It seems like both of them.
Yeah, it could be anything, Fong.
Okay, so are you particular about commercial or residential or anything?
No.
Okay. All right, so I'll be in touch with you shortly then.
All right. Thank you, Fong.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else that has a comment, please do. Just feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. But with that, I really want to thank Steve. Look, this is the first day that we made the official announcement. We, you know, Steve, myself, and Ram, we came to an agreement a few weeks ago, but we wanted to have a special event, a special occasion to make it official and you know, make that announcement. So, but with that, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. And so many of you have probably that own rental properties have probably used Citizen Home Solutions. You probably didn't even know that you were using Citizen Home Solutions. So Peter has also become a great friend of Better Capital, and he was introduced to us through Steve. But Peter and Wes run an amazing company. And I'm going to just basically turn it over to Peter, and then we'll have enough time. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A. But I'll give you my own story. And Peter, you don't even know that this happened, but I own a duplex in Indianapolis, and we're in the midst of selling it. We hired a new property manager. We're selling it, and I'm looking at some of the paperwork, and I see the Citizen Home Solutions number that the property manager had. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I know these guys, you know. So I didn't even know that Citizen Home Solutions was coordinating so many things on my behalf, and I'm not even paying them, but they were helping out with the tenants and the switching the tenants and the utilities, and so it's an amazing service that you've never heard of, but you will hear about it maybe for the first time today. So Peter, thank you for your time. I know you're in the Texas time zone, and so appreciate you making the time.
Hey, no, it's okay. And thank you for the invite. First of all, great platform, a lot of good stuff being, tossed around, and, always, it's a great way to learn new things, right? I think if anything, if we walk away with one thing tonight, is to be grateful, right? That Steve didn't go into modeling after all. That's the one thing we have to.
That's a matter of choice. It's a matter of choice.
So yes, many of you may have already may have used Citizen Home Solutions directly or indirectly. What is Citizen Home Solutions? But before I dive into that, what I will say is that Steve and Pete both were our very first client when we opened up the doors. And it was really due to we got a great opportunity in the property management space due to what Steve mentioned earlier. These guys were not your traditional property managers. They were not. They were definitely business owners that just happened to be running a management company, right? And so they were definitely thinking outside of the box, which made the opportunity for us to really capitalize and learn more about the industry. It gave us an advantage there. So thank you for that, Steve, and of course to Pete, always for that. But it's definitely one of the things that I wrote down as you guys were talking is the importance of identifying whether you are working in your business or working on your business, right? And so I think our service, our product is definitely it's built, it's made for those that want to work on their business and not in their business. And what are we? What is Citizen Home Solutions? It's a utility concierge service. Think about that for a second. A utilities concierge service, right? So you drive up to the Ritz-Carlton, someone comes up to your car, says, "Hey, welcome," open up your door, they grab your bag, ask you if they can, take your bags and maybe help you to the check-in desk, whatnot. So Citizen Home Solutions is here to do that, to provide a welcome, a move-in experience for a resident, for a tenant. It's definitely the space that we've been doing it in, property management. So the service is currently mostly catered to a tenant or a resident. So why would a property manager be interested in something like that? Well, at the end of the day, it does provide an amazing moving experience for the tenant or for the resident. It's been called over and over by many property managers a no-brainer. The service has been called a no-brainer over and over. It's simple, it's easy, it's free. It really sets up the property manager or the landlord as a hero, because they provided them with this. You provided the tenant or resident with this great service. So, what do? We save that resident or tenant money, time. They don't have to shop around. They don't have to even look to see who services their electricity, their gas, or water, any of that. We do all that legwork for them so that they don't have to spend all this time on the phone contacting service providers, looking for good rates. We gather all that information. We let them know we've got everything ready for you for if you want to have a 15-minute conversation, so we can go over all of your options. And in doing so, we help them set those services up so that they can just move on with their day and do anything else that they need to do. So on top of saving them time, we will save them money. But here's the interesting part. We're getting ready to roll out, and I know Steve knows a little bit about this. I've talked to Bobby a little bit about this too, but we're really excited about where we're going with this service. So I mentioned earlier, it's definitely something that's been very helpful, and it's been used in the property management space by tenants or residents. But we're getting ready to roll out a product that's going to be specific to the individual landlord, the self-managed landlord, the investor, if you will. And how does that work? Well, properties need services turned on and turned off. even when there's not a resident or a tenant living in them, right? So you probably know how much time that can take up, or know how much time that takes up. And so we're getting ready to roll out a very, very, just a very cool product that's going to help, again, the individual landlord, the self-managed landlord, the investor with the specific service. Steve and their company have been using us from day one. Like I said, the value that we now identify, or the need, I should say, that we've now identified, is really going to set us apart in the industry. So great for the tenant, great for the resident, but now it really comes to be something that's very valuable for the owner, investor, individual landlord, right? Where they can now you can move on with your day and not have to worry about utilities for that property, whether it's vacant or not. So again, a no-brainer. It's been used across the country for many by many property managers, real estate agents in the sales and management side of things. So it's a service that, like I said, you've probably used, or someone that you know has used one way or another. So
and I could just give you my perspective from owning a company. We had 1,000 properties, and whether you have one property or 1,000, it doesn't matter. It literally for us was the easy button, because one of the biggest pain in the asses for us was getting utilities turned on and off, and making sure that you got them turned off on time, so that the tenant didn't just keep them on in their name. So one of the things that you have to realize is, when you have a tenant moving in and you say, listen, we have a concierge service that's going to turn all your utilities on for you. You've got someone who's moving in from another area, another state into your property. They don't know the local mud, the local water, whatever it is, trash. And so this company takes care of it. And so that for us and for you as an investor, that's a reason that someone may actually rent your property over another one, because you're providing this concierge service. So I mean, I can just give you our reason. We'd have tenants actually rent our properties, which were top dollar rents, because we used it as a point of difference. And it wasn't like you have the option. We wanted them to do it because we wanted to make sure the power got turned off out of our names, so that we didn't get a bill 3 months later that now we got to go battle the tenant and be like, you didn't take the power out of your name or whatever. They took care of it. So I can tell you from personal experience, it was a huge, how many minutes and hours do you spend trying to deal with that? I mean, it's just a pain in the ass, and it's relieved. It was almost, I mean, for us, I think at one point it actually saved us an employee, like a whole 40 hours a week of staff time, because they took care of it. And it was like, wait a second, we don't even have to pay you for this? Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is something that you like. The first question is always like, what does it cost? Like, what do you, okay, I get it. It's a great thing. What do you charge? And it's like, it's nothing. We don't charge anything. It's like, how is that possible? Like, that doesn't make business sense, but it does, because they get paid on the other side. So it's a huge, huge benefit, I could tell you. And it was a great way for us to secure leases at top dollar rent.
Yeah.
And that's a great point, Steve, because, you were using it, you guys were using it as a need, right? You need services turned off.
Oh.
You want to make sure the bill doesn't keep going, but the tenant on the other side, or the resident, was using it as a convenience, because again, that was saving them time, saving them money. So now the point that you touched on, it's free, right? So you don't have to pay anything. Your resident doesn't have to pay anything. So how is that even? That's always, like you said, the biggest question. How do you make money? Exactly, Nancy. How do you make money?
I still don't know how you guys make money, actually. I'm not even sure you do.
Well, here's the great part. We haven't just figured out how to make money, but we've even figured out how to share this money with you guys.
I wasn't sure if you were offering that. That's why I didn't mention it. Yes, I that is the freaking deal, man.
That is pretty awesome. So, of course, your basic utilities, water, gas, and electricity. Think of that again as your basic concierge service. We're going to walk up to your tenants, or to your vehicle, open the door for you, and say, "Hey, we're here to assist you." But the ancillary services, you guys, everyone's going to need internet, cable, security, satellite, or something like that. And so when we help you set those services up, that's how we make our money, on the ancillary services. And then again, the best part about it is that we haven't just figured out how to make money doing this, but we've also figured out how to share that with you. So know Bobby's going to be putting up some more information about that and how we can help you guys if it's something that you're interested in looking into. And we do have again, it's a revenue share program. It's ancillary revenue that you can make. And, that's how Steve gets to travel the world and do all these cool things and ride motorcycles and stuff. Cause he's getting money from Citizen.
Well, and look, this is no, I mean, look, I love you guys. You guys got a great service, but I mean, it actually did put money. I mean, we would get a check every quarter. And I remember telling my business partner, like, I don't understand how this works. Like, we actually got rid of an employee. We're giving better service and they're giving us a freaking check. And it was like a couple $1,000s every quarter. I'm like, I don't understand how this, you get to a point, you're like,
right.
It's not
right.
That's not the reason, but it works. And I mean, these guys are, and I'm sure, you're being humble, Peter, but these guys are some of the most well-known in the real estate industry for them being able to crack this code and being able to provide such a great service. And basically what they're doing is they're buying back time and they're giving you a point of difference. In my opinion, from a customer's perspective, that is what they do.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned something earlier where there is property management companies, there are clients that depending on the size, depending on how many doors properties are managing, it did actually take a person to do this almost at a full-time basis.
Yes.
Right. So you're not just calling the service providers and asking or requesting for these services to be turned on or turned off. Then you've got to follow up and you're getting bills. Now you got to chase down that bill, chase down that resident, figure out, there's a lot of that. It takes place in the, behind the scenes. And so the service, it's no smoke and mirrors. There's no tricks, nothing like that. It's very, very straightforward, very, very simple, very, very simple. And so it's exciting to be able to now offer or bring this service to a broader audience like you guys, and like Bobby said, you've probably used it without even realizing it, or someone that has used it without even realizing it. But that's what Citizen is about. Going back to the value, again, depending on the properties, depending on how many doors you're managing, it will sometimes even do away with, and not that we're promoting to firing or lay anyone off by any means, but now you can use that person can be used in other things, right? You're not using an employee on just simply calling the utilities all day long, day in and day out. So you get to move people around into a different seat in that plane, if you will, right? That where you can use them more effectively. So it's a service that's been around for some time now. We're very excited for the opportunity to really discuss it here on this platform and to a broader audience. So thank you for that opportunity, Bobby.
You bet. And Peter is a partner for Better Capital. They've been just a joy to work with. So yeah, look, Peter, most of the audience is landlords that own properties across the country. Some in the Bay Area, the others, they could be anywhere, and they work with their property managers, or they self-manage, right? So for the folks that own properties, what is the trigger? What is at what point should they call you? Like if they're using a property manager, let's say in Kansas City.
Sure.
Should they be calling their property manager and saying, hey, Mr. or Miss Property Manager, are you using Citizen Home Solutions? Like what should that conversation look like?
Sure, absolutely. So that's a great question. And it really just goes back to what we talked about, right? So do you want to do it? Do you want to have, if someone's managing your properties, do you want them to do it for you? So we'd be happy to have a consult with you guys, just a quick demo of what the service looks like, but very simple. You either decide, okay, I want every one of my tenants to benefit from the service. And so I want to make sure that every time I have an approved tenant, the information gets sent over to CHS, or you contact your property management company if you have one and say, hey, I've got this concierge service that I want to use. I want to make sure that every time I have an approved tenant, their information gets sent over to that to CHS so they can help and assist them with utilities. So a couple of different ways we can go about it, but again, very simple, very straightforward, and could either be done by your property management company. We can make sure that gets rolled out through them, or if it's something that you want to do, we could do it directly with you. Yeah.
Beautiful. And folks, I put a link in the chat. If you just click on that link, you can read up a little bit about Citizen Home Solutions, and then just reach out. There's a little form you fill out. Reach out to Peter and the team. They'll take really good care of you. So now feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions, whether it's to Pete or to Steve, or you want to make a comment. Please feel free to ask any questions at this point. And if you, John, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else?
We've mesmerized them.
No. Any questions on the education? Go ahead, Bruce.
Hi, is this is there a certain type of property that you think it makes sense for? Does this make sense for? Is it something where if it's a single family residence and the turnover is every 2 years, it might not make sense, but if it's a fourplex where you have, every year you have at least one tenant turned, then it really does make sense? Or do you think there's some type of scale level where it pays off?
Yeah, definitely. So single family is going to be your best bet for something like that. It's any properties that have a higher turnover, you get more move-ins or move-outs more frequently. Multifamily can always work with those as well, but it's definitely something that's scalable. It's going to be something for a property where you have turnovers more often, for sure.
Okay. And then it wouldn't necessarily make sense for Airbnb where the owner actually really owns the utilities. It's really where the tenant is paying utilities.
Correct. And in an event, again, here very, very soon, in the event that you need utilities turned back over to an owner, to an investment company or something like that, that'll be the program or the product coming out very, very soon. So that will also benefit that side of things.
Peter, what about many of our members are LPs in apartment buildings, and so they don't manage day to day, but they have a GP who probably has a management company. If some of the folks in this Zoom meeting are LPs, what should they be telling the GPs and therefore the PMs to what should they be telling them to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. And see, in a scenario like that, it really is, let's say it's a multi-unit, large scale multi-unit or something like that. It'd probably have to be case by case and something like that, only because most of these may already have services that are always on. Most of these buildings may have even specific contracts with specific providers. And so we could always just take that information, do a little investigating and then come back and let you guys know if it's something that we can help with. But the multi-units are going to be case by case just because of those scenarios there.
Gotcha. And all right, great. Does this also work for commercial properties? Let's say somebody owns a strip mall with a bunch of little stores in it. Does it work for commercial properties?
Very happy to look at those scenarios as well. We have done those and we do those case by case again. So it really just comes down to, believe it or not, counties, municipalities, and figuring out if the requirements for a situation like that. But yes, we can look at those, need specific addresses so that we can, again, just investigate and look into them, but happy to do that.
Awesome. All right, everybody, feel free to ask any last questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Roger. Hey, Roger.
Hey, Bobby. Thanks, Steve and Peter. So, Steve, I mentioned that you get a check from Citizens every couple of months. How does that work?
Right? That's what I want to know. How does that work?
So
I know what check cash is. That's all I know.
So again, based on the percentage that we've that we've allocated or set aside from the gross revenue that we make from the ancillary services. A check is cut to Steve at the end of every quarter for any transactions that we made money on, that we closed on for the ancillary services. So a percentage is set aside and then shared with our clients, our partners.
And I don't, I don't know. I didn't know the specifics. I do know that, I mean, our checks were, $3,000-$4,000 every quarter. I mean, we were getting a good amount of checks. I don't know what that related to in working hours for citizen side, but I do know the revenue numbers, those were factual numbers that we actually were getting from them. And they are known in the industry. A lot of companies, I don't know if you guys have those checks on your website like you did before, Peter, but a lot of companies have guys are holding checks of, several $1,000s that they get every freaking quarter. So
absolutely.
It's like magic, man. It's like an igloo. How does it work?
Definitely not magic or smoke and mirrors. It's, again, very, very simple and no brainer.
Yeah.
Do I have to own a certain amount of properties before I get that check, or how does that work?
So honestly, the only condition, I guess you could call it, that we have right now is the only way we won't issue a check or release funds is if the amount doesn't add up to at least $100 for that quarter. If it does, then it's automatically sent over, ACH sent over to your bank or wherever you want it sent to. And yeah, that's literally the only condition that we've always had, just to make it, just so it makes sense for us to, cut that check. So as long as you meet $100 for that quarter, you're going to get a check.
But I think the question is, how does somebody like Roger, maybe Roger owns 5 properties versus 50 properties or 150 properties? Like, at what point does the amount, what makes it go to over $100? Like, what does that
What's a
match look
derivative?
like?
Yeah.
It's going to depend on what that tenant or resident, the services that they opt for, right? So let's just do a real quick example. Let's say they're requesting cable and they're requesting internet. Depending on the plan, the option, the level of internet or cable or whatnot that they opt into, then again, that's what we're going to get paid on, and an amount set aside for that. A percentage is set aside for the partner. Mm-hmm.
Got it. And okay, Roger, any follow-up question on that?
No, you answered it. Thank you very much.
All right. Other folks that are managing a lot of doors, I think this is something you really should consider. It's free money. It pays for your, Vegas gambling trip, or or an expensive dinner with Steve.
That works.
But I think somebody had a question. Let me see, who was that? Somebody had unmuted themselves. But anyway, look, you know where to find Peter. You know where to find Steve. You know where to find me. Please, we're always trying to bring value to these meetups, to our rooms. Please, if you know of other companies that could benefit, if you're part of something that you want to share with the world, please reach out to me. But we're going to have another event on 5/18. I'm going to announce it soon. But it's going to be on how to market on LinkedIn and a couple of other things on rental verification. I'm working on ways to make landlords' lives a little bit easier. We are champions for real estate owners. That's who our customers are, real estate owners. But try out bettercapital.us. We've put a lot of effort into it. Give us your feedback. Use it. Please tell your friends about it as well. But with that, I'm going to let Peter and a lot of you on the East Coast go get some rest. And but I'm sure I'll see you guys online very soon. So thank you, everybody. And if you like our meetups, please tell your friends, your relatives, your kids. Tell your kids about it, and we'll meet up soon. So Hey, Karen, did you have a question?
Hey, Bobby. No, I'm just listening. I'm just soaking it all in. This is great information. Thank you, Bobby.
You are a superstar. We got to have you on the show one of these days.
Oh,
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. And
Hey,
we'll-
Bobby, you do too. Thank you again for having us. Appreciate it. Steve, you be safe out there.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Nice meeting everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.